What if there was a law that could illuminate the entire path of your life, a guiding principle with the power of a mystical doctrine that promised unlocking true spiritual freedom? In this essay, we will take a deep dive into the spiritual and philosophical system devised by Aleister Crowley called Thelema, what he called the Law of Thelema. This doctrine has intrigued occultists, artists, and truth-seekers for over 100 years. This vision fundamentally defies existence as we have come to perceive it and prepares us for a journey that alters our perception of reality. So let us explore the origins, principles, and implications of this cryptic law. To fully appreciate the Law of Thelema, one must first understand the importance of Aleister Crowley, arguably the most controversial and influential figure in modern occultism. A deep analysis of Crowley's life is another conversation for later, but what is essential for this discussion is an event that took place in 1904. Crowley, during a stay in Egypt, claimed he received a revelation from an entity called Awos. This astonishing encounter is what he reported in Book of the Law Liber AL vel Legis, a document that would become one of the pillars of modern esotericism. This particular narrative starts in Cairo with Aleister Crowley and his wife, Rose Edith Kelly, performing some mystical experiments. Fueled by astonishment, Crowley narrates how Rose went into a trance and literally exclaimed that a certain entity wanted to speak to her. In the beginning, Crowley was doubtful, but he put her to the test. To his surprise, Rose recounted the details of the god Horus. The details were revelatory, and she had no way of knowing them without extensive research. That opened the mark for the establishment of a spiritual and philosophical system which will change the modern world profoundly. Crowley did not then that the story then would mark the development of modern Western spirituality. Crowley was at Cairo on April 8, 1904, waiting for what would be the most profound and unprecedented transmission of his life. For the first 3 days, a voice calling itself Awos, the messenger of the gods, began relaying revelations. These transmissions would later be known as the Book of the Law, a text Crowley would go on to spend the rest of his life interpreting. The text within contains foundational ideas pertaining to the spiritual nature of freedom, destiny, and future evolution of mankind, and marked an undeniable shift from religious idiosyncrasies. The self-fulfilling and self-knowledge aspects foretold to the claimed had the ability to surpass the known humanity doctrines were said to implement the Eon of Horus. Crowley spent years analyzing for the Horaid, the vision would aid in the shift from the restricting known to the unknown. Every aspect of Crowley's revelations was extensively argued over. Some people viewed him as the predictor of a new era, while others accused him of being a fraud. Regardless of the divided views, Thelema was adopted by multiple esoteric organizations, and it gained tremendous attention among occultists, writers, and philosophers in the 20th century. It surpassed cultural and national confines, which provided Thelema the status of a centerpiece of contemporary mysticism. One of the powerful and enigmatic proclamations that this doctrine takes intensely is, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." These words formulated by Awos outline the core of Thelemic philosophy, but their implication borders on the erroneous. The statement in question doesn't invite chaotic partying or barbarism, rather the opposite. Its real interpretation is of great depth. Within Thelema, the phrase, "do what thou wilt," does not imply acting on every desire or impulse that comes to mind. Rather, it indicates true will, the unparalleled goal or fate of every being, a purpose which contributes to the balance of the universe. Uncovering it necessitates intense self-examination and honesty through detaching from the surrounding world and false personas. Thelemites suggest that when a person lives from their true will, they correspond to the world's order, making standards of morality and religion irrelevant. This essential aim can be achieved and discovered by Thelemites through the use of occult rituals, meditation, and other magical practices. Similar to celestial movement, Crowley drew parallels of true will to the idea of planets revolving around a star. Every person is free to pursue anything, but conflict should be avoided. Similar to how planets do not interfere with each other's orbits, each one of us in an ideal world lives in harmony. Further, the concept of pursuing one's true will does not endorse chaos. Instead, it calls for self-reflection as well as self-discipline. It urges one to embrace their true self instead of hiding behind guilt or suppression. Rather, Thelema promises one spiritual freedom as well as claiming a deep sense of contentment that stems from existing freely in contrast with the universe's grand scheme. True will as the path to freedom. Every stratum of life has a burden, one that cannot be imposed yet can only be fulfilled by each individual. True will within Thelema specifies that there exists a goal perched in the depths of one's inner ego. There is absolutely no need to fit in with the external expectations waiting to be catered. One does not have to drown in the ordinary will. Instead, life should be perceived with a sense of perspective in the scope of human flourishing. The discovery of true will is unlocked by steadfast self-discipline combined with sincerity. Upon undergoing a deep internal transformation, overcoming the prejudices and societal illusions is the first step towards discovering true will. Recording your thoughts and experiences in real time helps in overcoming unachievable goals. One of the practices suggested by Crowley is the modification of the magic diary. The practices of pen down and thinking on how rituals influence outcomes assists in uncovering closed doors. True will can also be achieved through meditative therapeutic practices, such as magic ceremonies combining various forms of order and deep self-perception. The achievement of the pinnacle of internal harmony and desired autonomous action combined with an escape from external limitations can only be fulfilled at the end of the quest for true will. Love under will, harmony and freedom. It is critical to appreciate the nuance of Thelema's second principle. Love is the law. Love under will, because it is often misunderstood. In the scope of Thelema, love refers to something much greater than a mere romantic or emotional concept. It is something that blends all parts of the universe into one. A love so powerful must still be guided by a true will, lest it leads to chaos and destruction. According to Crowley, true love is only possible when each active participant is willing to do their own thing freely without hiding or limiting the other. This concept has profound implications on the nature of relationships, as it suggests that love can only be founded on the appreciation of the individuality and personhood of others. Love under will is not possession of another or attachment, but a fuller appreciation of the other as they are. In this way, love becomes an exercise of spiritual servitude with the intent of fostering and enhancing the will of each other's, supporting and advancing one's own. It helps to create balance where every component in the world performs its duty in accordance with its authentic being. Thelema and its responsible aspects. Discipline and self-control. Even with all its freedom, Thelema still requires an individual to accept full responsibility for their actions. Grasping the concept of true will comes with not just freedom, but a voluntary decision and the readiness to bear the effects of one's actions. Accordingly, a Thelemite ought to walk with honesty, exercising and respecting the freedom of others when pursuing their own will. The ethics of Thelema are not set by an authority or any form of power. They originate from an introspective analysis of the individual. Every individual must comprehend their true will and obey it while recognizing everything's oneness. This way, Thelema advocates universal and individual ethical orientation as a part of the unprecedented culture that encourages each human being to be true to himself while being part of a bigger whole. Adapting to these prepositions makes Thelema profoundly practical and profoundly liberating. It only calls for consciousness, some level of self-control, and deep devotion to discovering one's true will. A practical approach to managing Thelema, applying it to real life. Thelema is more than just a set of philosophies. It is a living system that can be put to use. For any individual wishing to follow the laws of Thelema, the first step would be understanding and pursuing their true will. The question then becomes, how does one turn this philosophy into action? The first step is addressing self-knowledge. The search for true will requires deep inquiry into oneself, which can be dealt with via meditation, journaling, and internal evaluations. Techniques like the magical diary, which Crowley advocated for, allow users to document their experiences and recognize details that bring them closer to their essence. Recording dreams, rituals, and emotional states provide the practitioner, now termed as the adept, deeper understanding and clarity about their internal world, something that is vital for separating surface-level wishes from a true desire. Aside from self-reflection, research is important for self-Thelemites. Reading texts like Liber AL vel Legis, Crowley's other texts, and other occultists' writings serves as the starting point for acquiring the basic philosophy of Theosophy. Order of the Eastern Star OTO and AA branches offer a more organized framework for Thelema practitioners. These bodies give out degrees, lessons, and tasks that aim to mold the adept to his true will. Practically, Thelema can also be incorporated into everyday life through magical and spiritual exercises. A practitioner, for instance, could start the day with the lesser ritual of the pentagram, which helps in clearings and energetic contouring of the disciple. Invocations of the Holy Guardian Angel, as described in Liber Samic, assist in inner divinity ascent and true will receipt. They are not done for the sake of the rites themselves, but rather for the reason of concentrating the mind, spiritually detoxing, and fortifying the pursuit of each individual's individualizing crusade. Responsibility and conscious action in Thelema. Embodiment of Thelema comes with personal responsibility and conscious action within the environment. Thelema purports that everyone has personal responsibilities depending on one's actions, and there are associated consequences for everything. Thus, it is important to behave with integrity that acknowledges the existence and freedom of others, while one's will is supreme. For a Thelemite, autonomy and self-discipline are intrinsic traits because otherwise freedom is merely a passive wish. True will requires an assessment of one's motives, making sure that actions are not impulsive or forced, but stem from an authentic understanding of one's being. Another practical aspect of applying Thelema is the devotion to achievement of numerously outlined requisites in his or her life. True will has no boundaries even in terms of spiritual form. It stretches to every single detail of life, including work, social life, self-improvement, and even leisure activities, regardless of whether a Thelemite engages in arts, sciences, or any other endeavor. He or she endeavors to live and manifest the true self. To pursue excellence is one of the ways of exhibiting his or her true will, which elevates ordinary activities into spiritual ones. At last, Thelema presents a holistic approach of the world where everyone must be in constant change. Following true will is an undertaking which demands the abandonment of boundaries and the acceptance of endless possibilities. The practice of Thelema is not constant. It is always dynamic, with the growth and changes of the practitioner serving for its meaning. When focusing on the application of Thelema in life, a person stops being a passive follower of a philosophy and turns into an active, self-creating individual utilizing the guidance of true will and the boundless freedom of this discovery. Myths about Thelema. More than hedonism, more than rebellion, one of the main falls of Thelema lies in the misconception that its philosophy allows for unrestrained hedonistic behavior. To those who have not studied Crowley's teachings deeply, it may appear the Thelemic principle endorses any action fueled by immediate gratification. Nevertheless, true will is not one's impulsive wants, but rather an aspiration combined with an intricate and deeply spiritual chase. The freedom offered by Thelema is not libertinage, but rather a responsible approach to achieving one's purpose while being in symphony with the universe. Another controversial point is the figure of Aleister Crowley himself. His writings often adopted a provocative and challenging tone, which contributed to the misinterpretation of his work. Although he explored topics considered taboo in his time, his goal was to break with moral hypocrisy and encourage a new approach to spirituality and individual freedom. Dubbed the most wicked man in the world by sensationalist tabloids, Crowley cultivated a transgressive image that served both to attract followers and to generate repulsion. Thelema has also been erroneously associated with Satanism, especially due to the use of esoteric symbols and the rejection of traditional religious dogmas. However, Thelema is not a satanic doctrine, nor does it promote demonic worship. Its focus is on the development of the human being through knowledge, will, and conscious love, without submission to any external entity. The confusion between Thelema and other esoteric currents stems from a lack of study and prejudice toward alternative spiritual systems. Morality and Thelema have often been considered antagonistic parts of a larger construct. One popular view is that Thelema has no regard for morality since it challenges rules set forth by an authority figure. That said, Thelemic philosophy has an ethical dimension to it which proposes an ethics based upon self-awareness, self-responsibility, and accountability. In other words, all people must know what their true will is and act accordingly without infringing on the freedom of others. Thelema does not impose a strict moral code. Rather, it promotes moderation and awareness as the guiding principles for living life. A path of spiritual liberation and misinformation abuse of Thelema by certain groups or individuals have given rise to the controversy and misunderstanding that the philosophy has come to be associated with. Like any profound system of thought, Thelema requires earnest study and practice in order to fully grasp it. Contrary to popular belief, the core of Thelema does not lie in senseless witch hunting, but in self-education and in openly enjoying the zenith of spiritual freedom. Such nonsensical assumptions make it difficult to appreciate Thelema as the life-changing philosophy that it is. Rather than being careless, the freedom this entity values is a pointer towards every individual's need to find and follow their own direction in space in unison with their true will. With the understanding of the law of Thelema, it's up to you to choose whether or not to pursue this route of self-knowledge and autonomy. You have been summoned by your true will. It is up to you now to take action. The three aeons of Thelema, Isis, Osiris and Horus, philosophers of Thelema, emphasize the three aeons as the center of Thelema's guiding philosophy, a system which was Crowley's attempt to account for human behavioral development. In Crowley's view, the flow of human history has taken place through a succession of three different and independently existing religions, each represented by an Egyptian goddess Isis, Osiris and Horus. The aeons are not solely periods in history, they also serve a consciousness which defines and structures religion, society, and philosophy. The aeon of Isis was defined by matriarchal religions alongside the worship of nature and exists as the earliest stage. During this phase, mankind paid homage to the divine feminine by revering Isis, the mother goddess. Fertility, nature's cycles, and existence's nurturing side were highly revered. This period represents a time where divine worship was instinctive for humanity, based on the reverence of Earth and its natural cycles. The Aeon of Osiris signified the age of Isis, who was also worshipped as a dying and resurrecting god. In addition to sin, guilt, and redemption, sacrifice and obedience were also included as a means of external authority. The Osirian view of the world was monotheistic and embodied by Christianity and Islam. Both religions placed great emphasis on devotion and submission to one singular divine figure. For Crowley, this form of religion illustrated an essential yet constricting stage for spiritual evolution due to dualism as well as the suppression of individual will. Crowley announced the Aeon of Horus in 1904 with Liber AL vel Legis, which is considered the current era, a period defined by a spiritual maturity and self-awareness. The child god Horus represents individuality, freedom, and the ultimate discovery of one's true will. In the Aeon of Horus, the focus shifts from external authority and sacrifice to self-realization and the fulfillment of one's unique purpose. This period marks the deconstruction of obsolete religious dogmas and the recognition that divinity lives within every individual. The beginning of the Aeon of Horus is viewed as a time for humanity to set themselves free from the constraints of previous ages. The Holy Guardian Angel, the inner guide to true will, Thelema incorporates many broad aspects, one of which is the concept of the Holy Guardian Angel, which is the spiritual essence of one's true self. As the Thelemic path suggests, achieving knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel is the goal each follower strives towards, as it represents the highest level on the spiritual ladder. Establishing conscious communication with this higher aspect of oneself requires a collaborate sets of rituals, meditations, and extreme self-discipline. The Holy Guardian Angel is viewed neither as a separate being or an angel nor a divine figure. Rather, the individual perceives them as a personification of one's full potential and true will. In Crowley's Liber AL, there is a detailed description of a ritual for HGA invocation that comes from sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage. This operation can be characterized as a form of an ordeal that is very difficult and changes the person due to the fact that it requires complete allegiance. and the readiness to dive into the darkest parts of a person's mind. The aim of possessing knowledge and conversation of the HGA is to integrate the practitioner completely with his or her true will, and in doing so provides direction and assistance on all life issues. After the connection is made, the practitioner possesses a wisdom that is above the ego and allows him or her to live in total accord with the universe. This is for many Thelemites viewed as a second birth spiritually, where one is no longer driven by the earthly purposes, but takes and follows the divine goals. The HGA is also a guide and a protector, offering help with obstacles and providing clarity on the way forward. As such, the bond with the HGA is a metaphorical dialogue that evolves with time, and the practitioners deepens with every step on the spiritual ladder. The emergence of this union is the beginning, and in no way is it an endpoint, because it offers a glimpse into more intricate and deeper secrets, allowing the practitioner to prepare for further initiations along with the prospect of advanced phenomena in the higher realities of the spirit. The abyss and the crossing. The ultimate test for the adept, a remarkable phase within Thelema, is the battle with the abyss, which heralds both nothingness and the potentiality of everything, as well as the easier physical world and the broad spectrum of more elevated comprehension. In Thelemic cosmology, the abyss is assumed to host Choronzon, who epitomizes the chaotic and fragmented essence of deceitfulness. One of the most elaborate ways to test the true will is for the adept to surrender to the void, an almost impossible way to defeat the ego and step out into the realm of nothingness. To cross the abyss, an adept must abandon all attachments, identities, and even their ideas. Symbolically, they sacrifice their ego to access supernal triad, which refer to the three highest spheres on the tree of life. An initiate must confront Choronzon, whom personifies the chaos of the disintegrated psyche and the terror of the unfamiliar. An adept who fails to overcome this entity suffers delusion and madness, becoming trapped within the abyss as a black brother, one who is consumed by ego and defies submission to the divine will. When accomplished, the adept emerges as a master of the temple, a being who has completely shed all identity and existence and reached the state of union with the divine. The body of a master of the temple demonstrates the principle of love under will, having fused with the duality and infinite consciousness personified by Newt. An initiation of this nature is a marked shift from the practitioner effortlessly observing the universe as one magnificent entity controlled by one will that flows through. Crossing through the abyss symbolizes both dying and being reborn. It sheds the illusion of separateness and unveils the real essence of life. This part of the journey acts as a strong image of the battle which is internal, the one between ego and divine spirit, which urges the practitioner to open themselves to doubt and completely let go of the need to control the journey in evolution. Thinking ahead about Thelema shows us that evolution can simultaneously happen on an individual basis and a society level. With the passing of time and distance into the Aeon of Horus, Thelema is a guiding light for countless spiritual teachings, culture shifts, as well as philosophy. The emphasis on taking individual responsibility, finding true will, and being free of dogmatic structure is appealing to a growing number of people who have become disenchanted with organized religions. Self-understanding and the freedom to decide for oneself is the hallmark of Thelema, making it accessible to both lone practitioners and those within the structured environment of initiate-based organizations. The remaining popularity of Thelemic teachings is seen in the growth of the OTO and AA, which serve as the most practical and integrated means for many people to adopt Thelemic teachings. In a broader context, the philosophy of Thelema serves as an appeal to humanity to acknowledge the tendency for conscious evolution. While attempting to move beyond outdated paradigms, Thelema has the potential to create a world where the individual is free to pursue their spiritual journeys unencumbered by fear, judgment, or repression of any kind, by offering the pursuit of true will. With an uncertain future looming over, Thelema teaches us to uncover our existence and take the courageous step of actively pursuing our true will. Thelema is a personal choice, and while it may not present an easy journey, it assures profound possibilities filled with deep transformation and life in the unison with the universe for those willing to tackle its challenges. Now that you have this information, what action do you choose to take? The call of your true will awaits. What is your decision?